Stop. Consider yourself warned. You are about to enter into a place that is not for the faint of heart. It is a place that is rooted in faith and reason. So if you are up for the challenge and are ready to do some spiritual spelunking, you are welcome to try. Welcome to Pat King's Man Cave.
Hi, welcome to Pat King's Man Cave. Of course, I am Pat King, and I'm glad you're with me. You can hear my podcast on Boise's Salt and Light radio station, Boise YouTube channel. Just look for Pat King's Man Cave, and you'll find it on the Salt and Light Radio, a big and Salt and Light Radio Boise YouTube channel. There's several other podcasts, Morning Light and Salt Podcast, and I don't remember the other ones. There's Catholic Cocktails, some other that are on there. Anyway, take a look, subscribe to the Salt and Light Radio Boise's YouTube channel, and listen to my show. I appreciate it. Thank you. You can also find me on other. I don't even know all the places you can find me. I'm Trinity takes care of that. I'm not a tech guy. I barely do this well. Anyway, today I want to talk about Divine Providence. I want to give you some examples of it, of real examples that have happened in my life that have. That's all I have to go on is examples that have happened in my life. But I've had many of these. I won't go through all of them, but I've had a lot of these that have happened in my life. And what got me thinking about it was I'm reading a book by Matthew Kelly called Holy Moments, and very good book. It's really not a book that you just read and put down and never read again, never pick up. It's actually something that you should pick up often to kind of reinvigorate that thinking of holy moments and how to establish a pattern of receiving holy moments, but recognizing them. And I think that's the biggest problem. Most people have a challenge with recognizing holy moments or divine providences or places where God has answered your prayer in his time, not necessarily your time. And sometimes your time may be when you want it, but you aren't ready to receive it yet because you really aren't prepared. You want something, but it's just not ready for you, and God's waiting for you to get ready. I have this favorite saying of mine that I can't remember who I heard it from. I think I heard it from Dave Severin, but I think that's who I heard it from. But God can't steer a parked car. And I got to thinking about that. If your car's parked, you can have the engine running, you could be putting the gas down, but if you don't take it out of park and put it in drive or reverse, you're not going to go anywhere. You can put it in neutral and park and rev up the engine all you want and burn all that fuel, but you're not going anywhere if you're just parked, sitting there idling. And most people just sit there idling. Sometimes I wonder if they're even idling, quite honestly, because you wonder, they sit on the couch for so long, you're just like, are you alive? Are you awake? Are you here? Anyway, I'm going to give you one example in my life that happened within the last several years. A couple, really started in 2016, 2017, and it took a while to develop, but it really helped me further my faith, further deepen my faith and my understanding that everything that the Bible's telling us, that the church is telling us, that God has told us is true and real. I'm going to do another podcast on the definitions, or is what it means, must mean what it means, ought. I'm going to do another podcast on that. But words do mean things, and they should mean. We've diluted the meaning of words, and that's where I want to go with that podcast. But today I want to talk about divine providence, and I'm sure when you look back in time at your life, you can see places where was that really the hand of God? Was that just a coincidence? I tell you, I can't see that we have so many coincidences. It's like the amoeba coming out of the water and then becoming what I am today, what you are today. I just can't see that. I'm sorry. No, and science can't even see it either. They can think about it, they can hypothesize that, they can theorize it, they can do all that they want, but they can't show it to happen. It's just not possible. God created us. He knitted us. He created every cell, every plant, every tree, every rock, every bit of anything that we have, anything there is. He created everything as he wanted it to be. And I can get into that because I grow seed as a commercial nurseryman. But so divine providence is the realization that God has had input in your life, has allowed or made things happen for you, whether you liked them or wanted them or even wished for them, or he always wants for your good. I truly believe that whatever your heart's desires are, he wants to help you have them if they're reasonable, if they're moral and ethical and right and deserving, and you know and you truly want to accomplish something. I truly believe God will help you do that, because anything you ask for, come to the Father, and you'll have it. And yeah, I want $1 million. Well, I've had $1 million in my life. Not at one time. I've been worth over $1 million at one time, and it didn't. Yeah, okay. I drove a nicer truck. Had a little bit more money to spend, but government takes their share, and the employees got to pay them, and my suppliers, and the tax man, and costs and expenses, and you spend it. Money is you spend. You're not going to take it with you. But anyway, so back in 2016, let's go back a little bit. When I was a little kid, I used to watch Christmas Eve Mass on television, and it was midnight mass in Rome at that time. That's when they celebrate midnight mass, and we're 8 hours ahead. We're in Idaho, so they're 8 hours ahead of us. So midnight mass would have put it at 4 p.m. I believe 4 p.m. live. If you wanted to watch it live now, I think they did delayed, but I think you could find it live on certain channels. And I watched it. I used to think that would be like the coolest thing, to go to midnight mass in Rome on Christmas Eve and be there, because they were just, even back then, thousands and thousands and thousands of people outside, and inside it was full and packed. And of course, I don't want to be on the outside, so I want to go one day and be inside for the mass. Now, then I left the church. I left the church in my mid-20s and didn't return until almost 30 years later. Anyway, it was always a desire of mine. And then when I left the church, I raised my kids in non-denominational. I married a woman of Southern Baptist. I left kind of for her, but the church was in the 80s, and the church was kind of in Southern California. It was priest, not the church itself, but it was a priest. And I didn't like their teaching. I thought the church was changing. So, and I was ignorant. I admit that I was ignorant, but at the time I didn't acknowledge that. And one of the things I regret about that is not missing all the Eucharist and all the confessions and all that stuff along the way. But Pope John Paul II I liked watching him when I wasn't a practicing Catholic. I just thought, yeah, he's right behind me. What a great Pope. What an inspiration. And I wasn't receiving the benefit of his shepherdness of my life as a leader of my church and bishop of a church. And it's I'm still learning from all the different things he'd written, all the letters and stuff he wrote about, all his sermons, everything. I just missed everything, and that's a big regret, because I really, really liked him when he was Pope. So anyway, when I returned to the church and started getting my faith back, started getting involved in the church, I went on a pilgrimage to Rome in October. I'm a landscaper, so that was kind of my slow time, the end of October. And I stayed there for 3 weeks. I've got family in northern Italy, cousins, and I went to visit them. And I traveled all over, Rome and went to Pompeii and Naples and Cinque Terre and La Spezia and Venice, and then I went to see my family in Trento. Then on the way home, I stopped in Lisbon, Portugal, to go to Fatima. I got a day and a half there, and that was really fun. And all the time, I got to know my way around Rome. I spent, I think, 22 days on that trip, and I got to know my way around Rome. And so the desire was even rekindled. Hey, remember you wanted to go to Christmas Eve Mass in the Vatican? I thought, you got to do this. So I it's 2016 and come back, and it was an expensive trip. I think all total I spent $5,000 or a little bit more, and it was an expensive trip, but it was worth it. It was worth it. I got to really see the beauty of churches and really, deepen my love for the church and the faith and all the travel and all of Rome, and why. Yeah, I kind of figured out why God put the head of the Catholic Church right there in Rome. I mean, they got all those mountains are full of beautiful granite and marble and stone, and they made all those beautiful churches. They ship it all over the world to build beautiful churches and altars. It's just phenomenal. It's just right there in that little tiny country of Italy, and it's got all that fabulous stuff, marvelous rock structures and stuff that I don't think they'll ever run out. God's got to be keeping them up, keep creating more. But it rekindled in me that remembrance of a childhood dream of wanting to go back to Rome and to go to the Vatican. And in so 2017 and 2018, I started saving up money, started planning for it. And my plan was to go wintertime. Okay. So I'm a landscaper. So hey, that's a great time. Also, I've been working on a book about my experience with my son and my life, all the things I went through with raising him, my thoughts, my doubts, my challenges with his life, born a burden. I felt he was born a burden, and how he became a blessing. And I want to write about that because I think for me, it's more therapeutic. But I have told that story. I've given that testimony several times to people, and they say, oh, the same thing. Oh, you should write a book. You should write the book. So I went there to write because I have a hard time not doing stuff around my place. I have a small farm, and so it's challenging not to work. It's like squirrel. I'll be sitting in my office and I'll see a weed. Oh, I got to go pull it, or squirrel, and I got to go chase it. Don't tell me that never happened to anybody out there. Come on now, be honest. Anyway, so in 2018, the big push. So I started planning a schedule, listed all the things. I thought about all the things I wanted to do, and I started jotting down all the places I wanted to go. And I said, I want to spend a couple, 3 weeks in Assisi, one of my favorite, spiritually, one of my most favorite places, most solemn, beautiful little place. For as small as it is, it's just so powerful, so impactful on my life when I was there in 2016. And I thought, I'm going to spend a little more time here where I could just get up and go about, see everything, check everything out, get to meet people, spend time, go to daily mass, all that stuff. So I planned a couple weeks, and then I planned time in Rome, and I want to see my cousins up in Magalo, up in northern Italy, north of Trento, just real close to the Austrian Switzerland border, and I thought, well, I'll go back to Cinque Terre and see. I thought I could do more. You got to have a car. I wasn't going to rent a car. It was they drive crazy over there. I just didn't feel like I could navigate by myself. I could have. It's not that hard, but it's just the added expense and stuff. And I thought, well, I really came to write a book and spend time. And then I thought, okay, let's go on let's go on a cruise. I looked at cruises, found you could go to the Holy Land at Jerusalem and stop at the Greek Isles and see all these different places on a 12-day cruise. And so I decided to do that. So ended up, by the time everything was all said and done, it was a little over 2 months, like 66 days, 68 days. And then I was going to go after Thanksgiving, but a friend said, "Hey, if you go to Rome before Thanksgiving, the North American Pontifical University up there you can go have Thanksgiving dinner with the seminarians that usually stick around, because a lot of them go home or have other activities, and so they you can go have Thanksgiving dinner with them." And so I thought that'd be cool. So then they found out they were having I forget what they call that, where all the every 5 years the bishops all come to Rome to meet with the Pope, and that was happening at that time. So Thanksgiving was a big day for all the American bishops. So there was no room in the inn for me. So I got disinvited. I got invited, I got disinvited. So I didn't get to eat. There wasn't enough places to sit and eat. So anyway, would have been cool to eat with all the bishops. That would have been awesome. So anyway, the thing was, I made this plan out, so it got extended, but I was going to go in 2018. And this is where I'm going to get to Divine Providence. But you don't know at the time. In fact, I got really kind of angry, upset that, woe is me, this isn't going to happen. So I've got the money. I did the budget. I figured out what it was going to cost. It was roughly about $5,000 to $6,000, for the trip and everything like that. And at that time, it was only like 5 weeks. I think 5 weeks in 2018. It was 5 weeks, and so I'd made all my plans. I hadn't booked any passage yet because I was waiting until things got closer. I think you can't book airline more than 3 months out or something like that. So I was talking to my travel agent. He helped me put train rides in all these different locations, and when I would travel from spot to spot, he was going to help me get an Airbnb or someplace to stay, and make arrangements for travel and stuff like that. So I had this all planned, laid out, ready to pull the trigger and buy the ticket, the airline ticket, then book everything else. And I had the money. I knew what it was going to take, had the money, had the budget, and had money for extras, for stuff I wanted to buy, trinkets and holy rosaries, stuff like that. So 2018, I've working hard, putting in a lot of hours, landscaping, trying to make as much money. I even had a part-time job at doing event security at Fort Idaho Center, concerts and stuff. So I was putting in as many hours as I could there to make some extra money. I had a dog, so I had to make arrangements for someone to take care of the dog, and I put up some security cameras that I could see over the internet, and a Ring doorbell and some other things, so I could be able to see what's going on from afar. And they work pretty good at that time. So I have an apartment. I've got all this going on. I've got arrangements to have my dog fed and taken care of. Like I said, at that time, it was only about five, maybe 6 weeks. So 2018 comes. Literally days from saying, "Okay, George, order the tickets, buy the tickets." A transmission goes out on my truck. Now, I thought maybe cable broke, something simple, And I take it to my transmission guy. He's worked on other cars I've had, other trucks. He's rebuilt my daughter's transmission and another car, my ex-wife's car. So he take the transmission and take the truck in and drop it off, and he goes, "Oh, needs a complete rebuild." Can you get a remanufactured? No, it'll take too long. They don't have one in stock. I can rebuild this for actually less and give you a better warranty, and actually put something else in that was better. I guess my 4-wheel drive wasn't quite right, or something was wrong, broken. I don't know. I'm not a transmission guy. I'm a landscaper. So anyway, That was $2,800. Okay. Shoot. Now I don't know how, that's, I got 6,000. I just paid out 28. Um, I don't think I have enough time. I might have enough time. I'll just go put in some extra hours. I'll go do an extra landscape or an extra sprinkler job. I'll do something. I'll find a way. I'll sell something. As I was going to go, man, my schedule was going, but I had to wait now and delay because I didn't have all the money and I didn't want to do it till I know I had it. And oh, now I'm fuming. I'm mad. I'm ticked. I can't. I mean, that was a good truck. It worked. I still have it, but man, I was disheartened. I thought, oh my gosh, this isn't right. This is why now. And then just as I think, okay, I think I can swing it. I think I can swing it. I think if I add up if I budget everything real well and economy was going pretty good at that time, not too bad. I thought, okay, I will save my money. And I think I can pull the trigger. Boom, my air conditioner dies. Now, my cousin works for a guy that works for an air conditioner guy. So I call him up and he comes out free of charge to test it. And he goes, oh, when was this put in? I said, well, about 7-8 years ago. He said, well, did you have any Freon added to it? And I said, no. He goes, well, it's more Freon in it that's supposed to happen. I'm surprised it lasts this long. It seized the compressor up and it shot. And the cost of the compressor was more than a better, newer unit. I have a heat pump, so that's part of the problem. I have to have a heat pump. I live out in the country and I use propane for backup heat, but you don't want to use that as your primary heat source because it's very expensive in the wintertime and you go through it fast. So I have a heat pump and he goes, well, you can either spend this much on the compressor and place it, or for a few bucks more, you can get a whole new unit, a better unit and bigger unit and all that. And it'll be just like, it was only like a couple $100, $300 more. And so, yeah, that was another $3,000. And, I just said, okay, trip's gone. And I said, I don't know when I'll be able to save up this kind of money again, but at least, okay, my truck's running now. And almost as soon as I got my truck, air conditioner goes out. And I can laugh at it now. I was not happy about that. I was mad as you know what. I was ticked. I was thinking, okay, and I wasn't mad at God or anything like that. Not like I had been in the past. I was just okay. That's life. It happens. I'm glad I saved the money for this trip, that I had the money to do the repairs. I mean, that's the way I looked at it. I was grateful that, okay, I was saving this money up and I had other needs for it. And so I had the means to take care of it. So that's what I did. So I had resigned myself to the fact that I wasn't going to go on this trip anytime soon. And I was bummed. I was really bummed. Okay. So now this is 2018, right? So I'm not going. I think I had $800 left of the money that I was set aside for the trip. So I told my travel agent, George, I said, and told him what happened. He goes, hey, I understand. At least we didn't pull the trigger and then I try to figure out how to get the money back. Yes, I was very grateful. So there was that. It's like, okay, so it happened right at the right time. So I didn't make, like, if I'd bought the tickets, I'd go, okay, now what do I do? So as the year went along, now this is in July and August, and now I'm thinking, okay, I thought I was still going to try and go, but I started saving up again. I still had that $800, but I thought, okay, well, I've been working on my house. I've been remodeling my house the off season. I said, let's just get some more things done this year, and I'll put off the book and the trip and all that. But it never left my mind. I said, one day I'll go on this trip. One day I'll go on this trip. But the thing was, I learned that you don't just go to Rome weeks before Christmas Eve Mass, and then their tickets are free. You don't pay for them, but you don't just walk up to it. Can I get a free ticket? You gotta request them. So if you ever want to go to Rome for Christmas Eve Mass or any special audience, you go to the North American Pontifical Office in Rome. You can contact them directly. It's easier by mail, email, phone, but get their address, email, put a request in for a ticket for Christmas Eve Mass, or you could contact the Vatican. So what I did was I did both. But so I learned about that in the interim of my cancellation. So as we go along, Christmas comes and goes, and I see my father in October of 2018 for his 2019 for his birthday. We have a birthday party for him, and he was 80. I don't remember, 80 something, 88, 87, 87. So Christmas comes and goes, and January comes around, and I'm thinking, dang, I'd be in Rome right now, man. I'd be in Italy having a good time. And then I get this call that my dad had passed away. Okay. My dad had passed away in I think January 15th of 2019. And it dawned on me right then and there that I would have been in Rome. I would have been on a cruise as well to Israel. That's when I planned that cruise, was to go to Israel, and would have left mid-January, and I would have been on a cruise. So if they would have gotten a hold of me, then I would have had to make a decision of either leave the cruise and fly home for a funeral, or miss it altogether and continue my cruise. Now, you think, oh, that's not a tough decision. I had no problem. I would have been there. Yeah, well, my dad wasn't in part of my life. I mean, ever since I was 11, he wasn't around. He didn't come to any of my big events, didn't come to my graduation, didn't come to my baseball state tournament, didn't come to anything I did. From the time I was 11, yes, we got together three times. When I was 18, he paid for a flight to come see him at Christmas time and my 18th birthday. And we did some fun things there. But, it's not the same as a dad that comes to your ball games and sees you play. And my state tournament baseball game, we beat the defending state champion. I had one heck of a game. 2 stand-up triples, knocked in 7 of the 11 runs, and we were the lowest seed, and we beat the number 1 seed. And that was a great game. I played like crazy. I made some great catches at third base and made a lot of stops, and we beat them 11-4. But 2 stand-up triples in the same game. And my dad didn't see that, So, I probably, it would have been a very tough decision to say, I'm just going to carry on with my cruise. I don't think anyone would have blamed me if I had done that. So, well, I couldn't get off. I couldn't fly home, whatever. And that would have been, but I think this is where, again, when things happen, you think back on it, you think, okay, maybe that's why the truck broke down, and it was going to break down. I mean, it was just old. I mean, I've had it since 98, and this is 2018, and it's got over almost 300,000 miles on it. And I pull trailers, heavy trailers, my skid steer, my tractor, all that stuff with that truck a lot, and up and down hills. So, I mean, it's bound to go out. Okay. Sooner or later, it's going to go out. And my air conditioner, yeah, sooner or later, it's going to go out. But did it have to go out to ruin my trip? Well, okay. Yeah. Is it a coincidence? I don't know. I happen to think God had a huge hand in that. Like, okay, it's going to die. let's just have it die now. The transmission is going to quit. The air conditioner is going to quit. It's going to kapunk on him. Might as well make it happen now so he doesn't go and doesn't have to make that decision. I think God helped me relieve a big regret in my life by having to make a decision whether or not I come home, and let the fact that my dad wasn't much of a dad to me say, oh yeah, just, you guys do the funeral. I'll see you later. But no, I was able to be at his funeral. In fact, all 7 of us children were at his funeral, which was a very good time spent with each other. So it was well worth it. I'm glad that I was able to be there, and still bummed that I didn't get to go. But I look back and go, okay, God, you had a hand in it. There's some, now I didn't call it Divine Providence at the time. I hadn't really even thought about it that way yet. But then, I didn't expect much. I thought my dad was out of money. I didn't think he had much. We weren't. My brother was the executor of his estate, and we weren't kept abreast of everything. But we were told that there would be some money. I wasn't counting on a whole lot. But by the time all the expenses, the funeral, the burial, the trip to bury him back in Iowa, he's from Iowa, so he wanted to be buried back with his mom and dad and his family, sisters and brothers. And so by the time all the money was spent on all that stuff, there was enough money to leave each kid about $6,000 plus. And I'm going, okay, that's more than what I lost spending for the repairs on my truck and my air conditioner. That's even better. And at that time, the economy was really good, and Brexit happened, and it actually made the price of the ticket less. And I actually got more bang for my buck. I learned some things about, okay, I was only going to stay 2.5, 3 weeks at an Airbnb and Assisi, but I learned that if you book an Airbnb there for over 28 days, you get it for half price. So I was able to book more time. So I spent more time, and I spent a little over 3.5 weeks there in Assisi. And then from there, I went to see my family in northern Italy, and got to see both my cousin's husband and her brother, my other cousin, both at Christmas time. And then shortly after Christmas, one passed, and then 4 or 5 months later, the other one passed, my cousin's husband. And I got to be there to spend time with them, and then see all that. I mean, to spend that time with those family members, and that's awesome. And you're going, so I extended my trip. I got there before Thanksgiving. I didn't get to eat Thanksgiving dinner, but I spent time, got to meet some seminarians. We had another meal later on. And then I went to Assisi, spent a month there. But here's where it gets going, is that now all this happened, Divine Providence. These are all things that have happened off of the fact that I'd planned a trip that got canceled one year and then happened again the next year. I got on my very first day in Rome, I meet this priest from Ghana, Africa, as we're standing in line to get tickets to the Wednesday audience, because back before COVID, it was all, you had to have tickets if you want to get early in and get a better seat. It was better to have tickets. So you made sure you got in closer and earlier. And so we both want to go get tickets. Well, we show up and the office isn't open yet. Said they'd be open after lunch. Well, it was 1:30. I thought, okay, open after lunch. They didn't open. Yeah, lunch started at 11:30. Didn't open up until 3. So he was on break from school. He was there for school. And so we got to talking. We talked there long enough. The guy walked in, said, no, we don't open until 3:00. And I said, okay. So he goes, I go back to class. So we exchanged phone numbers, and we start communicating with each other. And I got tickets, one for me and one for him, so he could go the next day. And so I meet Father Francis in Rome, the very first day of my trip. We hang out throughout Rome, go all over the place when he was on break from school for Christmas. I get 2 tickets. So I'm going to go through this fast now. I get 2 tickets to Christmas Eve Mass. And Father Francis, who I just met, said, "Oh, I thought being a priest, you could just get in to go see Christmas Eve Mass." I said, "You can, but you stay out in St. Peter's Square. You don't get to come in. You got to have a ticket. So even priests have to have a ticket." So, but I have 2 tickets. And so I give one to Father Francis. Well, keep on going. So we spend time hanging around. He gets into Christmas Eve Mass. We're sitting right close to each other, right near the aisle. I could literally reach out and touch the Pope if it wasn't for all those guys in the black suits that were walking beside him. I didn't want to have anything. I didn't want to have to explain why I'm in jail, a Vatican jail. So I behaved myself, but it was, that's how close he was as he's walking by. This is awesome. This is cool. And they put a lot of people. Christmas Eve Mass in there was so beautiful. It was everything I expect. It was more than I expected. It was, I was just blown away. I was so blown away. So I meet Father Francis. Well, then Father Francis and I hang out, and then he's going back to school. I'm getting ready to go on my trip to the Holy Land. I get on my cruise. Don't know anything about COVID. Now I get sick the weekend before the trip, and I get sick. I thought I had just a simple flu. I've been walking. It gets cold at night and warms up during the day, and I'm from Idaho, so I had a jacket if I needed it, but I'd be walking. I walk 12, 15 miles every single day, and I'd be all sweaty, but it would get dark by the time I got back on the bus and went back home to change and get cleaned up, go to eat. And I'd be all sweaty, and it was chilly, and I just thought, I got a cold or a flu, and so I didn't feel good for a bit, and so it proceeded, and I thought, well, okay, it persisted, and I better go. So I go to a pharmacist, and he gives me these flu tablets, and he said, just take all these, and because you get prescription medication from a pharmacist there. And I take the medication. Within about 5 or 6 days, I'm feeling better. And then I get on the cruise ship. And then notice my taste buds couldn't taste. I'm eating good Italian food, and I can't really taste it very well. So I thought, okay, that's just a flu. And this is 2019. Now we're in 2020, right? Christmas Eve into 19 and 20, then January 2020. Had a great New Year's Eve party, had a blast in Rome during the Christmas holidays. And then I get on this cruise, and we go to Genoa, and they were going to pick up, but they canceled our trip to Milan, and then we go to Jerusalem. We get all over the place, Holy Land. No talk about. There's a little bit of communication about some flu outbreak. I think someone called it COVID or something at the time, but everything was in Italian, or I didn't watch the news. I was having fun. So I get back home, and I get back in Civitavecchia, the port of Rome, and I get on stay the one more night, and I fly home. And now Father Francis and I are communicating through WhatsApp and staying in touch. And I fly home, and my sister tells me that the ship that got 2 or 3 days after us was stuck in quarantine. They were, because the COVID flu outbreak was on the ship, and they had to stay on the ship, and they were locked in there for a week. So I got home just in time. Again, some divine providence. Coincidence? My timing was perfect. Thank you, Lord Jesus. And so I come home, and 3 months later, I hear about COVID and the lockdown and all. I hear about COVID this whole time, but I hear about the symptoms, and I go, oh, I had all that. So I had COVID in Italy. And this is before they really, really knew what it was. And so Father Francis ends up being sent back home to Ghana because they canceled school. You know how they locked down Italy, locked it down tight. And so he had to go home to Ghana. So he couldn't even finish his first year of school. So he and I communicate. He sends me some pictures of them serving mass outside under a tree. And I asked him, I said, well, don't you have a church? Or don't you have any place to sit? And he said, no, when the schools are being used, we can't use the rooms, and they don't let us use their furniture, and we don't have anything for outside. So we just stand, and their masses are 2.5 hours long. So Father is showing me pictures of their mass. I said, well, is there any benches or anything out there? Yeah, we can build them for like $10 or $15 a piece. And I said, okay. I said, how many would you like? How many would you need? I said, let me see if my knights will pitch in and we can do something to send you some money to build some benches. So we find out that they need about 40, and we sent them enough money to build about 40 benches. And they put our logo, Knights of Columbus voted on it, Council 3086, put their names on it. And he was very grateful and very appreciative. And while he was there, the church is growing. And if you know anything about Africa, the church is growing in leaps and bounds. The Catholic Church, Christianity in itself is moving in great leaps, but the Catholic Church especially is growing really rapidly. And so they have these little out villages, and that's where the Father Francis goes to all these little villages. He and another priest do 16 masses on the weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, and they're 2.5 hours long. So they start early in the morning and do masses all day long on Sunday, and then a bunch on Saturday evening. And so they get some benches, and now he's sending pictures of the benches and all their appreciation, and then they're sending pictures of us back there and the knights, and they thank us and all that. So we're building up a friendship, and then Father Francis goes and he goes back to, well, then they decide they're going to, one village, they found one villager gave them some land to build a church on. And so they asked if we could help out. And we said, sure. We raised some money to help. They're doing all the own excavation. They're building their own bricks. They're doing all the work. All the villagers are, and they just need some financial support, some help. So we sent them $3,000. That bought them a lot of concrete and rebar to, build the bricks and excavate and pour a foundation and start building that part down. And we've since raised some more money for them. But a council in Caldwell, Idaho, Council 3086, Knights of Columbus, is helping build a village parish church called St. John the Evangelist in Ghana, Africa, in a village in Ghana, Africa. Now, how did we meet? Just happened to have one meeting in 2019. Now, if I'd been there in 2018, we wouldn't have met, because that was his first year in school. And so when you connect all the dots, you're sitting going like, this is just a coincidence, just happened. No, a lot of things took place. Like, did God want this to happen? I think. I mean, God can't steer a parked car, but he wants things to happen for people that are moving. He's going to direct their traffic, their path, and direct them into ways. So now Father Francis is right here in Idaho right now in 2023 visiting. He's spending 3 months here, but he came here for Christmas. He went back to school after the COVID opening up of Italy. He and I stayed in contact. He wanted to thank all of us for all their help and support. The villagers had made some traditional African shirts for us, and he brought them with us at Christmas time. He liked it so much. He'd never seen snow before. He'd never felt that cold of weather, seen snow. He loved it. He'd never eaten a roasted turkey before, because they brine and smoke everything there. They cure everything because they don't have refrigeration in their villages. So everything is hanging around till they need to eat it. And so, he got to experience some great stuff. He would never have done that if we hadn't met. If my trip to Italy hadn't been delayed by a year, I wouldn't have been at my dad's funeral. I wouldn't have, now I've got a good running air conditioner, a great running truck, and I still got to go on my trip. So it was in God's time. It was God's plan. Yes, I truly believe in divine providence. I believe. And now Father Francis is right here at my parish. He's a Knight of Columbus at my council, and he's serving Mass. He's hearing confessions. He's a third priest now in a very large parish that needs more help, needs more priests. And here he is helping out for the next 3 months. And he's a great guy, and he's a young priest. And if you go look at one of my episodes, I don't know, 34, 35, 36, something like that. It would have been in December of 2022. Go look at that episode with Father Francis. There's 2 of them. and listen to his story about how he became a priest. He not even Catholic at the time. He was raised in a traditional African religion, which is an idol worshiping religion. And he left school at 12 to follow cows, to be a rancher so he could make a living. And how he became a priest. I mean, it's a small world, baby. I mean, it's amazing what God will do, can do. It's not coincidences. We're broadening his horizon. He's broadening our horizon. He's taking back stuff from the Knights of Columbus to help his men become more spiritual, more faithful, more loving of their wives, their spouse, the leaders of their church, the leaders of their families. He's taking that back with them. And why? Because we just met in Rome getting tickets. And if the office had been open, we probably would have walked in, got our tickets, and left. But instead, it was closed, and we got to talking. We got to chatting for like a half hour, 40 minutes. Got to know each other. But that wouldn't have happened if I had come in 2018, like my original plan. So now Father Francis, who I met in 2019, is here in Idaho. He'd never been to the United States before. The only place he'd ever been was Italy and Rome. He lived in Ghana all his life. So he goes to Rome. I meet him on his very first semester of his first year of school. And I meet him only because I'm there a year later. And I came a week earlier than I originally planned in 2018. So it's amazing how it's just a coincidence. Yeah, right. God had a hand in every aspect of this. And if you don't believe it, then I don't know how. There's no help for you. I can't help you there. But I laugh because I look at so many things in my life where God has had a hand, but at the time I didn't understand. It wasn't the prayer I wanted. I was disappointed. It wasn't the avenue I took. It wasn't, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't my schedule. So I was upset. But and look at the friendship I have with Father Francis now. And look at how many people I can't get a day with him anymore. He's here for 3 months. I'm going like, hey, when can you and I get together? Well, he's looking at his calendar. He's got lunch with these guys. He's got dinner with these guys. He's hearing confessions all day over here. He's just, it's like, that's not fair. You're my friend. I got you here. But now I'm sharing him with my whole parish. And he's going to know 4,000 or 5,000 people back home. Oh, and another thing. So my podcast is seen and heard by his parishioners in Ghana. And there are other priests in Rome that have seen my podcast. Oh, here's another great story. So this is more part of the same story. Divine Providence, baby. So Father Francis and some other priests are on spring break. Let's just call it that because we understand that from school in Rome, I think over Easter or something like that. And they take this break from school and they go on he and about 5 or 6 other priests go on a pilgrimage to Fatima. And of course, when priests are there, they hear confessions and they can celebrate. They do all this other stuff. And he meets a guy from Montana, which is not far from here. He invited him up to Montana, met this person from Pennsylvania and this person from North Carolina, this lady. And this lady gets to talking to him and asks him name, and they get to know each other. I guess he heard her confession or something like that. And he goes, "You look familiar." He says, "I think I've seen you on a podcast." And now the only place Father has ever been on a podcast is on my podcast here in Idaho. We did that at Christmas time when he was here. Now he's at Fatima on Easter, and this person from North Carolina somehow saw my show. Okay. And I mean, come on. Isn't that cool? That's pretty cool. So priests in Rome, fellow priests, he's going to school with or got to see my podcast, his parishioners in Rome. I've spoken to his sister on the phone. She loves me. She's heard my show. She saw the show I did with the podcast I did with Father Francis. They thought it was great. They thanked me. They want me to come out, and I shouldn't boast. I shouldn't say this, but so Father Francis was asked from his own village where he grew up, is now all Catholic, growing like crazy, and they were the traditional African religion, but now all Catholic. And since he's the very first priest out of their village, out of their area, they have a really growing, like 500 parishioners, and they're building a church. And so they asked him to help them decide what name they should call their parish, their church. And now, again, I'm not trying to boast, but this is what he told me. And so I tend to believe it's true. He said, well, my friend, who's been a tremendous influence and tremendous help to me and encouraging me and all that, he said, I think we should name it St. Patrick after my friend Patrick in America. And now they're not naming it after me. No, I'm not dead, so I can't be a saint. Of course, I'm trying, I'm working on it. But that influence, and they're calling it St. Patrick. And I thought, now that's cool. I mean, but that's that friendship that would never have happened if God hadn't had a hand in it. And I'm going to go. So when either St. Patrick's is built or the other one that we're helping pay for, St. John the Evangelist, when one of those are built and being dedicated, I plan on going back for the dedication. And my whole state Knights Council is helping fund now, helping send money back there to Ghana to help build their parish, their church. So little councils in Idaho, we only have 5,300 members in the state of Idaho jurisdiction of Knights of Columbus, and yet we're helping build a church in Ghana as it should be, as God wished it to be. I take great joy in the fact that all this stuff has happened, and I look back and I think, yeah, okay, I can see how God steered me along the way, and that's fantastic. So I'm just telling you, look back at things in your life that have happened that have worked themselves out, or all of a sudden you have a great joy, and kind of put the pieces together, because it'll give you satisfaction. It'll give you some relief, that knowing that God is there for you. I've got other stories I could tell. Maybe I'll do another one like this and go over some other divine providences, but God is the pursuer. God is always wanting to make you happy, help you to be happy, help you find happiness, help you have the things you want, your goals, your dreams, desires. And I tell you that, I know that's a long story. A lot happened, and a lot happened even during COVID. I mean, there was a lot that took place during COVID that we did just through communication through the WhatsApp and whatnot. So it's a beautiful thing. Our church, our Lord, our God wants to help you. He wants to guide your path, but you can't be a parked car. You got to have dreams and goals and desires that you want, but they got to be ones that are good for you, ones that benefit your family or your church or your faith, your heart, your soul. Make them real, and then ask God. Ask him to help deliver that. And then when things happen, don't sit there and go, all the world's coming down and it's ending. Trust me, God wants your happiness. God wants you to be fulfilled. He wants you to be eminently happy and joyful, and spreading your. This is why I do the podcast. There's no other reason why I'm doing this, because I get nothing out of it. No money, no endorsements. I'm not getting popular. Don't want any of that. Don't care. I just do this for fun. I do this because I'm called, and I'm answering God's call. And things have happened for me on this even. I have a live radio show that, I can go down the list of all the different things that have happened, because I'm just one of those guys that is always moving forward. And I'm glad, that song, Jesus Take the Wheel. Hey, I'm glad God's steering the wheel now, because when I was trying to take control, it didn't work out. So it was not pretty. It was kind of ugly. And I like it when God, I mean, look at Pope John Paul II back there, just smiling, going, yeah, that's true. So anyway, with that, we'll say a prayer to St. Michael, and God bless every one of you, and subscribe to the Salt and Light Radio Boise YouTube channel. Look for Pat King's Man Cave, or just use search Pat King's Man Cave, and I hope you'll find it. Like it, subscribe it, comment, please comment. I want to hear comments, whether I'm fool or not. I don't care if you think that, but I'm always trying to work on making them better. Anyway, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Pat King's Man Cave, a weekly podcast discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. A product of Salt and Light Catholic Radio in Boise, Idaho. To learn more about our ministry, please visit our website at saltandlightradio.com.